Hey, this is Nick from FitStep.com and PowerfulTrainingSecrets.com. Now, what I've got for you today is a version of positions of flexion training, first originated by Steve Holman of Ironman magazine. Now, what I'm doing here that's different is that instead of doing just straight sets of these exercises, positions of flexion, which I'll explain, I'm going to be doing 1 1/4 reps. Now, these quarter reps are going to focus on the money part of the exercise that I'm looking for with the positions of flexion. And if you're not familiar with it, essentially you start with a kind of a mid-range exercise is what Steve calls it, and that in this case for chest is going to be a bench press, which basically puts the majority of the tension on the muscle kind of in the middle of its range of motion. Now, this kind of sets up the mass building. And what you're going to do next is switch to an exercise that focuses on the stretch, and in this case it'll be the dumbbell fly, and you're going to be doing a fly and then looking for that stretch reflex at the bottom. So it's not a real bounce out of the bottom, but you are looking to use a very deliberate, a very fast kind of stretch reflex out of the bottom to really activate more muscle fibers. Now, the final exercise is going to be a contraction position focused exercise, and in this case I'm going to use the cable crossover machine. So we'll be focusing on this position with peak tension as you're bringing your hands together, which basically, now that you've worked the muscle fibers with the mid-range, activated more fibers with the stretch, you're going to really finish them off with that contraction and really dig in and really target the most muscle fibers as possible. So this is a really effective way to build mass, and attaching the 1 1/4 rep technique to it makes it even more effective because you're focusing on those money parts of the exercise. So I'm going to give you a quick demo here. The first exercise is the flat barbell bench press, doing the 1/4 rep at the bottom, staying just below the sticking point. And the key with this one, do not bounce out of the bottom. This is true with any of these exercises. We're looking for a very deliberate movement, no bouncing, no rebounding, and massive, massive tension. That's the first exercise. As you can see, using a moderate weight under complete control, really doing a very deliberate movement at the bottom and pressing back up. And I'm going to do 1 more set of this, so 2 sets of the mid-range, and then I will show you the flies, and then I'll show you the contracted position cable crossovers. Alright, the next phase is going to be the dumbbell flies. It's going to be focusing on the 1/4 rep at the bottom again in the very stretched position. Now, I'm going to use the myotatic reflex on this to really try and get more muscle fiber activation. I'm not really going to hold the stretch for very long, which you do when you're doing like a fascial stretching kind of movement. This is going to be a very deliberate lower, and then change of direction, and then back down, and then all the way back up. see, these are very tough, especially when you've already done the mid-range stuff beforehand to really get the fibers fatigued already. Now, as you can see, and probably as you can hear, as I'm doing that, I'm taking a few breaths on the way down, but that last breath as I come into the bottom of the fly, it's an inhale and I'm holding it. Now, what that does, it expands the rib cage, which gives your pecs a better line of pull. When your rib cage is kind of flattened out, like if you're getting squished down, your chest isn't pushed out, shoulder blades aren't back behind, that flattens it out, puts more stress on the shoulders. So the real key, get those shoulder blades behind you, take a deep breath, especially as you come into that bottom few inches of the fly. And again, come up and then repeat that inhale as you're doing that quarter rep. So that's the dumbbell fly section. Next is cable crossovers. Alright, so the final phase of this positions of flexion 1 1/4 rep training is the cable crossovers. And this is going to really focus on that contracted position. When your arms, right hand and side I should say, are really close together and you're really firing up all the fibers that you've basically tweaked with the previous stuff you've just done. So put this all together and you got yourself a killer set for your chest. And like I said, you're going to do 2 sets of bench press, 1 set of the flies, and 1 set of the cable crossovers, and your chest is done. And when you're doing cable crossovers, one thing I definitely encourage you to do is not start in this position on every rep. I actually recommend getting into this bottom position first and only coming up as far as here. Because with the cable crossover movement, the real good part is at the bottom, not at the stretch at the top. So that can actually overstretch your shoulders, cause some injuries. So what we're looking for is just this short movement at the bottom. Then all the way up. I'm not even using a heavy weight, and my chest is absolutely fried right now. This is all about tension. This is all about the positions of flexion, essentially, is the different positions that you're putting tension on your muscles in. And that's the real key to making this work. And definitely give this one a try, especially if you find you have a lagging chest. This is a really powerful technique. Positions of flexion with the 1 1/4 reps.